last handover, I'm now going to give the floor to Stephen Estes, who is going to introduce our speaker for the evening.
Excellent. So we're honored tonight to have as our speaker one of the really major figures in water and wastewater engineering operations. John Sullivan is the chief engineer of the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, a title he's had for 30 some odd years. We won't go into too much detail there. He knows the Boston system inside out, upside down, and he's led the investment of over $1 billion of improvements, making it really one of the best systems of water and sewer anywhere in the country. Educationally, you always have to do that. We're here at Northeastern Institute of Higher Education. John's well qualified to be presenting tonight on this topic. He's got a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from UMass. He's got an MBA from here at Northeastern, and he has another master's in emergency management from the Mass Maritime Academy, covering all these different topics we'll talk about. Of course, he's a professional engineer, and he's a board certified environmental engineer by the American Academy of Environmental Engineers, well regarded around the country. John's held pretty much every position in every professional water and sewer organization over the past few decades. Way too many to mention. I'd be tempted to do the sponsor thing and list about 30 of them, but I won't do that. I'll just say he's held, I think, every title on the board for the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies. After 9/11, he was the founding chair of the Water Information Sharing and Analysis Center. He's been a trustee at the Water Research Foundation for longer than I think any other trustee. That's true, right? Yeah, John knows how to manipulate the bylaws to make these things work well. And he's been on the policy making council of the American Water Works Association for at least the last 20 years or so. He's won pretty much all the awards offered in the water and wastewater field over the years. It's about a half a page on his resume. I'll mention two that are particularly important. The George Warren Fuller Award, American Water Works Association, and locally, Boston Harbor Now's Founders Award for Environmental Leadership. Both I think really important for this. Having said all that, what John's really known for is his good ideas, but good ideas grounded in the sort of engineering and physical reality. And he's noted for moving the industry in Boston forward. All of which means it's entirely appropriate for us to welcome you here tonight to give the Freeman lecture. I'm sure he's going to inspire and encourage us all to deal more effectively with climate change. And so there's this challenge, right? All these people have to take on this mantle when you're moving on. So take it over, John. Thank you.
Well, a couple things real quick. I've been here working for the city for about 50 years. So it's a long time. I did learn some things though. Steve mentioned all the different positions I've held. The key is become chairman of the nominating committee. You nominate the new president, the president knows you, so he continues your service, whatever you want to do. So that's for all you young guys, that's how it works. Don't always go for the top, go for the power. And you learn that here in the city of Boston. If you want to be here a long time, come see me, I'll help explain it. So, what I do want to tell you though tonight, your expectations, what are you going to take away from this tonight? Only God knows, because this is a work in progress. Everything we're all doing, we're all learning on climate change. Anybody that thinks they got the answer, I can tell you right now, you're wrong. Because we keep learning new things. You've got to be open. You've got to do things you didn't do before. I can't imagine when somebody said, let's put a parking garage under the Boston Common, the most cherished place in the city of Boston. Everybody would say, no way. Now you wouldn't even know it's there except for this little portal. Down which, by the way, we put stormwater. Down this little portal. And it works. But it was a challenge at the time. People said, no way. We can't touch that. That's sacrosanct. That is the Boston Common. It works. So we've got to open up our minds. And I just want to ask you to keep an open mind, and everyone in the audience keep an open mind, that what I'm going to suggest tonight may seem a little bit radical, and maybe later they'll all say, what a great idea. Maybe posthumously, but whatever. We'll see how that works. A disclaimer. I've never had a disclaimer in any talk I've given. However, things I say around the city occasionally can be a little controversial. And we have new administration, and so I'm letting you all know, these are my thoughts. This is me. Blame me. You don't like them, blame me. If you like them, tell me about it. But this is what I want you to know. This has not been endorsed by my board of commissioners yet, because we're not through with our little studies and our goings. And it has not been endorsed by the city, although we talk to them all the time. We haven't finished anything. And that makes you a little scary, because it'd be nice to get something finalized, but we're working on it. First, I'm not gonna talk about water supply. We have the most excellent water supply here in the city of Boston. It's run by the MWRA, who are all unbelievable, bringing you great water.
Yeah.
They bring it to the edges of the city, and then we add love in the pipes. And that's why you enjoy it so much. But we're not gonna talk about this, that's cooperative and all that, and if you need to find that out, a bunch of MWRA people are in here, they'll take care of that. This is our wastewater collection system. It looks a little complicated in the system. Basically, we collect the sewage and wastewater and storm drainage. Some of it gets to the MWRA system, we don't treat. We let it roll downhill. Gravity is our friend. We have very few pump stations in the city of Boston. We only have 4 that are sanitary, and the biggest one is 6 MGD, which most people, if you do any design of that, you'll laugh at. Now you gotta know, when I talk tonight, I gotta bring this down a bit, a couple of levels, because some of you design highways and get real excited about travel lanes and all that kind of super elevation. I gotta help you out with what bothers us. So if some of this stuff seems rudimentary, it is, but I'm trying to uplift you.
Thank you.
This is Boston's topography. You gotta understand this. The green is under elevation 47. But you can see the city flows towards, down towards the harbor. And we have 2 sets of problems. And I'm gonna be looking mostly at the sets of problems in the green area, what affects us there. Because it's got to do with sea level rise and coastal. We're also studying how we keep the people at the other end of the area, in the northern part of the city here, or the southern part of the city, I'm sorry. How do we keep them dry also? We have fixed infrastructure. You can't fit any more pipes in these streets. So if we get a lot of rain, sometimes you're gonna have to run it down the street or through your backyards, because we can't get it down into a pipe. So you've got to understand it or hold it. Now we try to hold it, not in yourselves, that's a plus. This I just want to show you, the darker color is what Boston was, the original outline. City of Boston was all filled land. Imagine trying to do that today, fill in all that land. But that's what they did. That's how we expanded. We needed more room. We bought in the land. And so that gives you an idea of how much of this is filled in. And if we're not careful, that's what it's going to look like if we don't take care of our problems with sea level rise. Nature's going to come back and put us back where we were. Now, the only thing I wish is that when they were filling in the back bay, etc., they had a brother-in-law that sold dirt and he put in an extra 5 feet, but that didn't happen. We came to the elevation that we knew at the time. It worked well. We were high enough. And now we have an issue. So we already have flooding. Flooding already occurs at king tides. If you get on the long walk, you'll see it come over in Tinian Beach, the water comes over. That's along Fort Point Channel. The water comes up on extremely high tide. So we already have it. So we know that's a problem. It doesn't take genius, and we're not going to spend a lot of time studying that, because that's what happens. City of Boston has done an incredible job studying climate change. They've been doing all kinds of studies. People don't realize how much is there. At Climate Ready Boston, if you go Google that, there's studies galore. And they continue to improve also. But we're all learning, all of us. And so we get new information, we'll change it again. And that's what's so important about this, continual learning. They have 2 big issues, the heat island effect, which we won't cover tonight, and the issue of resilient harbor. And these 6 boxes show the studies they've done, and you can pull them all up. They did an incredible job working with the residents of the neighborhoods. They've gone around, they asked them, what do they need? What do you think? How are we going to keep the seas from coming and getting us? And it's extremely important that the residents understand and buy into it. Because this magic thing occurs. We want to build something, we need money. Where do we get the money from? We get it from the residents. So this is important, number one. Number two is renters. You can't assume that people are just gonna say, government's gonna take care of you. Everyone has to be working on this together, because if we have a major problem here, we gotta put people somewhere. We have to find a place to put them, we have to put them up, we have to take care of them. And that's why everyone needs to be cognizant that climate change is occurring, and everybody has to be part of it. Everybody has to be willing to add their ideas and take a little hit now and then, a little hit off the chin. This just came out. This is the 2022 sea level rise technical report, just came out. And it tells us that we are going to get 10 to 12 inches in the next 30 years. So all of us who were sitting there doing the study saying, yeah, 2070, it's far away, we don't have to worry about it. Well, guess what? 2050 is right around the corner. Now, if you don't think so, think what you were doing in the year 2000. It wasn't that long ago. Now, here we are calling in 2022. You'll be reviewing these slides, I know it, for the next 8 years, wondering what the hell happened in 2030 with our predictions. But we continually update them. But this is a given thing. This is the new science that tells us this is happening. So here are some of the city slides. First thing they did was, how could the sea level rise come in? What are the routes that would come and take us out? And this is an example out of the South Boston, how would it attack us and where the low points are. And it's very important that we look at these and we continually revise them, because people will start building mini levees, et cetera, when they do construction. But it doesn't do you any good because you got a weak link in every chain. You've got to get the entire thing.
Yeah.
And this is something that we keep mentioning to the planning agency also. We have to come up with consistent ways of doing this. They got to match together. If you're going to build something and you don't know whether the sea level rise is going to be 5 feet, you should make the foundation capable of taking 7 feet of levee. Build your foundation big now, costs a little more money. You don't have to wall the city off yet, but you better have that foundation there, because if we miscalculated, it's going to cost a lot more money to go back there and take care of the problem. Or you buy a lot of lake bolts. No choice. Charlestown has a major flood entry, and this one's very interesting. If you take a look at it, it comes in through Charlestown, but it also impacts Cambridge and Somerville. And so this is one they got to hit early on. And I have a slide later showing you how they work with it, and that the system that the city has in place is actually working. The problem is consistency. Everybody's leaving jobs, everybody's disappearing, everybody's retiring, and how we keep this actively going so that we consistently move towards fixing the city, protecting ourselves, and building what we need to build. This one here is East Boston, another high flood risk. And I wanted to show you this one because I'm going to explain in a minute, why does the water and sewer care about this? I mean, you go on the TV and you see devastating floods everywhere, rivers coming up. They're all living on slab foundations, and their, living room furniture is floated out to the front lawn, whatever, you can replace all that. We have cellars in the city, and these cellars have been converted to living spaces. People live there. And that's where we put all our utilities. They're all sitting down there, they're all brand new, we're all happy about them. And nobody thinks about them because we haven't had the problem yet. We at the commission are extremely concerned about what could happen if this particular one in East Boston hit. This area here is combined sewers. And so combined sewers, of course, the water wants to go into the catch basin, go into the sewer. And this is an unlimited source of water. We call it the ocean, and it'll just keep coming. The good news is there's a thing called low tide. So here's an example where the city is cooperating very well. You saw the flow path on the right-hand side, or whatever side you're looking at it, left-hand side. And then the city is planning on taking care of Ryan Park. That's the lower piece on that little diagram with the red. So as they're planning that, the developer at 425 Medford Street is also planning to develop his waterfront. And between the two of them, they will build what we need here. And at the end of the day, it's something that we can all enjoy. So we get to enjoy it, and it gets to protect us. And that's the way we have to approach this problem citywide. So the Climate Ready Boston, they have coastal barrier schemes for everything. I just show you here where they go. That's great plan. I love them planners. They just draw a line and say, when we build this thing, life will be okay. Well, there's a lot more complication. For instance, I draw a line on that and I go through his property, her property, and someone else's property and a trust property. And who's gonna maintain all that good stuff on those properties? So that is a very difficult thing that we've got to, as a whole society, we have to deal with this. We have to figure this thing out somehow. There's the, excuse me, elevated waterfront park here. This is the Ryan Park concept. It's a concept. We never build what we conceive. That's what we do. But it looks nice, and it shows you what can happen. How we can make a public amenity out of something that's saving us. The Moakley Park, you may have heard about this. That's an amazing, amazing development. And by building Moakley Park, they'll simply raise it up. It'll keep the ocean at bay, and people can enjoy it. Because you know what? It's sunny out most of the time, except for the days it's not. That's deep thought from the water. The Border Street is another one in East Boston, and again, really, really interesting concepts. And everyone's working together. Everyone's pulling for them. One of the problems we have with all these great pictures is money. And that's tough. Besides the fact that somebody else's land most of the time. There are some that are built. This is Congress Street, Wild in East Boston, already built. It shows you what can be built and how it works, and it goes on. Nature-based solutions is what we're trying to use everywhere where you can. Kind of tough when you're in the main channel, shipping channel. It gets a little tough, nature-based. Remember though, concrete is nature-based. I'll just throw that out. Here's another one, Spalding Rehab. You hear about that everywhere. How they plan for the 500-year flood. It works, and people enjoy it every day, and it's protecting an area. So when implemented, all the plans, all that yellow, will protect the shoreline of the city, and we will get there. It's just we need to get there in time. Because if anything's going to make us hustle up this plan, is one good flood. And then watch how fast we work. There's also the idea of the surge barrier in the harbor. We're not going to go over it. It was mentioned also in the Climate Ready Boston. It's something in the future. But this doesn't work for every single day when the high tide comes. When the tide is coming up high every day, you can't shut off the harbor. Can't do it. So you need the onshore barrier, for sure, on the sunny days, when the tide is super high, so it doesn't come in and get you. So you need to do the onshore. This, we can look at a little future. There are active groups looking at it. We are not, ourselves in the city are looking on nearshore. So, first thing we realized is we needed to have something to get people excited. And so we created, working with Hazen, the inundation model. And if you've never seen this, this is a really good start. And believe me, this is our start. Everyone thinks we did the model, we're gonna go home. No, this is our beginning. And every 5 years, we need to redo it. You can't stop. First of all, there's a lot of input from people. So we did this for the local drainage. It's very graphic. It's BWSC Storm Viewer. And if you don't remember, you can email me someday and I'll send it that little way. But this was put together for the sole purpose of telling the public what's happening. We did a lot of work on what type of storms happen here in the city of Boston. We did a lot of research, which are the worst ones and what's going to affect us the worst. Because this is going to continue, this needs to be updated all the time. Because we look historically, because that's what we know. We have data. We don't have the data on what will happen in the future. So all this is on explained when you get to that model. This is the screen you're going to look at. Very simple. You go to your far left. You pick a storm, any storm, whatever one you're worried about. You pick your amount of rainfall. It gives you the estimates, and this was our original estimate. They will be revised. How much rain we expect. Now I can't see. You can tell I'm old. Then we select the year of sea level rise. 2030 or 2070. Those are the numbers we chose. They will be updated for those of you that might have a different number. It will show you on the screen what happens if we do nothing. Now that's what's the most important part of this right now is if we do nothing. This is what's going to get flooded. This is the public education tool. If you notice the next one, number 4 there, it says the 360 tour. There's little yellow dots on this particular screen. You can click them. And this was because I showed this whole thing to my neighbors who were PhDs, God bless them. They had no clue what the color map looks like, the thematic map, because they couldn't read it. So I realized we needed to reach the smart people, and I figured we could do that here at Northeastern. So we put this particular item in. Finally, the impact forecast, you can see we tell you how many schools are going to be impacted under this scenario that we have plotted. You can also compare 2030 and 2070, so you can see how bad it gets. Again, public education tool, that's the whole thought of this thing. And it will be updated. So here you would be, if you click one of those little yellow things, what would it be like on a nice day, and then not so nice a day, if the sea level rise were to occur under the scenario you can pick. Likewise, this is down by the aquarium station where everybody talks about, and the aquarium station has protection. That's what it'll look like. They would not use my original picture that had a mother walking her child because the child was underwater. But that was a thought. We also have Power BI. And what that is we have all kinds of data of the population, what critical facilities are impacted, which ones there are. Because if we have this flood, we have to put these people somewhere. We have to know where to move them. We have to know what facilities, fire stations may be on, police stations. What roads can't you drive down? On that map, if you go into zoom in any of those colors, you zoom in deep enough, it'll tell you how many feet that level of water is. So you can say whether you can ride down the street if it's 6 inches, or whether it's 4 feet, you can't do anything. So, and again, this is the model, this is to educate the public to see if we can get everybody interested. So we know that if we build the walls, which is the upper left-hand corner there, we can, at super high tides, with tide gates that are on our pipes, we can protect, on a nice sunny day, you will not drown if we implement this whole thing. We know that. We've been working with the city, we gotta pick it up. Problem we have is, and it was asked in many communities, what are you gonna do when it rains out? None of these studies looked at the rain. And guess what? You know, we talk about the word storm surge. The word storm brought up the idea that it might be raining now. And we are believers in gravity. And all of our systems, except for one major pump station, flows by gravity into the harbor or into the rivers. So that is not really good for us with the flood barrier and the rain zone. So I just wanted to show you a couple of things. This is for all you highway engineers or wannabe highway engineers. This is what happens when stormwater flow comes over. We have holes under the ground. And if the stormwater flow gets into the building, and it doesn't have to get into cracks, it can blow through windows. You know, 3 or 4 feet ahead of water is pretty powerful stuff. It gets into the basements. And if you've got anything downstairs, and everybody seems to have a toilet or a sink or a washing machine, the water can flow backwards into our system. So all of a sudden, our sanitary system, which is expecting only an occasional flush or a great shower, is getting this inundation of water coming down through buildings. So this isn't something we make up. This can really happen easy. So if that's the case, the guy downstream has got this sanitary sewer chock full of sewage, and he's minding his own business. He's not getting the flood water, but the sewage can come back up at his house. And what we have in the case of that, we have back water valves you're supposed to have in your house. Believe me, if it's in your house now, I challenge you to tell me, first, you know where the hell it is. Second, when was the last time you took it apart and made sure it was all clean? That's something you do early in the morning. So I'm just telling you, they're required by law. They work when you put them in for about an hour, and then they start getting fouls because debris, wastewater is flowing by them. Things get hung up. So you gotta watch this. But so this is what happens. So somebody winds up with all the neighbor's sewage in their basement. And that can take out your burner, that can take out your electrical panel, that can take out your brand new drywall you put in so the mold can grow because it gets behind there, it gets in with the insulation. So this is a major public health potential, and it happens. I know people don't think it does, but it happens. We know because we get the call. On a combined system, when I showed you in East Boston, even better. We fill up that sanitary sewer even quicker. If we can't get the water out, sewers get full, boom, up in the basement it comes. And you don't need, maybe a couple of your backwater valves are working, all you need is one that doesn't, because this is an unlimited supply of water coming at you. So that's proof that it works, that it can come back. Here are different examples, and it flows, and it just keeps coming. And these were taken before it got up to eye level, so just letting you know. This is what we need to prevent for our customers. We need to prevent this for people that live down in basements. Anybody in the South End, all those South End places are all living spaces now, and very expensive ones. This we need to avoid, so that's one of our primaries. So we're looking to have happy toilets. That's a primary objective for us. And that isn't my house. We're also doing continual infrastructure improvements. MWRA worked with us over the last 15, 20 years. Incredible amount of infrastructure improvement, incredible amount of CSO separation into two separate systems. And it worked really well. Well, we also identified 2 more areas that could get additional separation. And that's in East Boston, where there's 230 acres, and South Boston, where there's 400. South Boston project, we already started. But, you know, the key point is we're going by gravity, guys. All gravity. No pump stations yet, because we haven't come up yet. So it's a balancing act. I show you this color because all these colors are where we've already separated sewers. Everybody talks about Boston being this big combined sewer system. We're not. We're very few, but they are powerful, those combined sewers. The ones that we have. Downtown Boston, you can't put another pipe in the street. Try to dig a hole in the north end. Well, when you move the furniture off the top. But try to dig a hole, you can't get a pipe on the ground. Just there is no room anymore. So we need to keep those combined, need to keep moving. We have sewers built in the walls of the subway tunnels in Washington Street. You can't put another pipe, it's all subway. Also, we want to put the subway. So we went to phase 2. And again, we engaged Hazen. And this is our coastal stormwater discharge analysis program. We're going on, we'll be through at the end of the year. And this diagram shows you with the inland flooding, we have gravity systems. How do you get rid of it? You pump it. That's a typical engineering solution 101. Because that's what everybody does. Everybody has pump stations. Everywhere you go, every city, they talk about them. New Orleans got the big ones. But that would work here in Boston too. But we're also trying to reduce our carbon footprint. So what do we do now? This is a little bit of a problem we're looking at. So we got to think a little bit different. So we looked at the sea level rise and storm surge, and I told you the initial numbers we had. And then we want to come up with new designs. What can we do besides just plain old build a pump station? So here's one of the problems. Those tide gates I was telling you about. Right now we know about 595 of them. And the Boston Water Sewer maintains theirs and checks theirs. We check them once a month. We're also putting devices on, so if they are backflowing, we know about them. But take a look at those numbers. We own 268. A bunch of the other characters own a bunch too. And I'm not sure that the primary purpose of mascot might be to worry about a tide gate. That may not be high on their list. There are other ones. There's also a bunch of unknowns, and we don't know where they are. We see them sticking out of the wall. We don't know who's going to flood. One of them alone will defeat the purpose of a levee. So this whole issue is something we're going to be looking at. I just showed you a couple of pictures to see what they look like. They can be on the outside of the wall, or is this one on the right-hand side, is one we installed down by A Street. And they're not cheap. This one cost us $1 million. And they're tough to maintain. They're like the backwater valve, maybe not as yucky, but it's pretty tough moving this thing and exercising it. And you got to be on them all the time. You're putting them in an environment with a little bit of wastewater on this side and salt water on this side. Just what you want for non-corrosive purposes. So we took a look at all the sites. We looked at sites that have multiple outfalls. We got to bring them together. You wouldn't build a pump station at each outfall. You'd bring the pipes together with an interceptor and bring it to one spot. We have open space opportunities. That's the nature-based solutions I talked about. We always look at parks. We look at parks differently than most of you do. But we look at the opportunities that parks would, it's a public place. Of course, Article 97 tells you it's not free. There's a lot to be done with that. And then we have more challenging areas, and then we have low vulnerabilities. Some of the places they can flood, so it floods a little spot, nobody lives there. We'll put them on the bottom of the chain. So we took a look at the outfalls. We wanted to do phase one. We wanted to take a look at how many sites can we do right off the bat. Because you can't do them all, you can't study them all, and also you need to learn. So do some, make mistakes, fix them. And that's the big thing. We understand we will make some errors, but we're smart enough to realize, acknowledge that and keep working. We don't worry about the Charles River. We're praying for that dam. John Freeman's dam. That's the one. That dam works well. The Army Corps did a hell of a job. It protects all of us. It protects Cambridge also. By the way, if you look at our maps, you'll see Cambridge. You want to buy some houses, buy them on our side. We don't flood as much. Just throwing that out there. But it's very important that the dam be maintained. And right now it's working, and more things work well. But we got to watch that, because the amount of damage to be done, if that dam fails, the back bay floods. The back bay is combined sewers. I showed you what happens in combined sewers. You win not only the rain, the salt water, you win everybody else's sewage. So we don't want to be there. So that's extremely important. So we have phase one, because you always start somewhere. We looked at the different outfalls. How can we join these together? What can we do? We don't want pumps. We don't want pumps. We don't want pumps. Because we do have a pump station. So over Union Park, it takes over 778 acres of the south end. It used to flood all the time, but in 1913, they invented electricity. So we didn't have to have a coal-fired pump going all the time. We could flip the switch. So we originally had an electric station there. Everybody was happy. In 76, we built a gas turbine fired one. And then people said, well, this is great. I said, we'll move everybody downstairs. Well, in 1998, we had a failure of the pump station. And thank God no one drowned sound asleep after drinking wine all night, because it failed at night. These are the ideas. Everyone has a backwater valve there, by the way. Not every backwater valve works. So we know the devastation that can occur. It also is huge. Pump station. This one here can pump over 300 MGD, and that's to take care of 780 acres. We got a whole bunch of acres out there. So this is the problem. By the way, I didn't mention, we don't own any land. So if you see me eyeing you and smiling at you when you're standing with your green pastures, now you know why. We need to put our stuff on your property. And by the way, if we have to pay you, then we look to our customers. And if you're one of our customers, you can see the cycle. It's an issue. So this works well, very well, but it's something we would like to avoid. So we can pump. That's an option. Everybody in the world does it. Everybody loves it. But we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint. And by the way, solar collectors don't work during a storm either. I'm just throwing that out there for everybody that says use solar. Not that you people with the higher education field would say that, but people have said that to me. Why aren't you just getting gigantic batteries, collecting the energy from the sun and turning it on? It doesn't work. So we can build underground storage. Very common, big, large tunnels down underneath the cities. Milwaukee's got a bunch of them. They work great. But guess what? When they fill up, you gotta pump them out. And that's called energy, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We love gravity, so we're trying to keep working with gravity. The one in the middle is $2.8 billion Tokyo. It's under Tokyo. It's a stormwater collector system. Again, they do a double duty. They have that keeps the city dry. They also do tours. They charge you a lot for them. And then finally, that's just a tunnel boring machine, in case you've never seen those. So we come across what we call the 4-point channel opportunity. And the reason is, you see the data there, 10% of the city drains to this. The Mass Pike is protected by this. The Mass Pike pumps that channel. Gillette works out there. We have 90,000 people, the size of the city of Quincy, live here. It goes all the way up towards Dudley Square. It's a huge area. By the way, just so you all know, disclosure, Boston Water Sewer is inside this area. And that's not the reason we want this done. But we're in it, as is Boston Medical Center. Nice place to keep dry during emergencies and problems. So Amtrak, the whole rail winds up here. So we looked at this and said, well, what can we do? And so the challenge is just what I've been telling you. High sea level, we can't drain during high tide. So what could we possibly do? Well, here are the outfalls that we've identified along 4-point channel. pretty hard to see, but the biggest one is down the bottom, the BWSC CSO, 240 inches by 186 inches. Big pipe.
Wow.
That's the mouth of the 4-point channel. 1,700 acres are coming at you, including those areas in South Boston I just told you about. We're gonna separate. And then I said, ma'am, we're not worried about pump stations because we'll worry about that a little later. Well, now it's later, so we're worried about it. So you can see all the problems, all the tide gates. And where would you put, if you know that area, where would you put your pump station? Along here. The city is building the levee wall. You may have seen that. They're going for a grant. Great idea, because every day, twice a day, we get sea level. Up it comes. You gotta keep that from coming in at us. So we like this idea. We think the city should do it. They're cooperating with everyone, the old GE headquarters site of Gillette. It's gonna work, and it's a good trial for us, because we learn. This is how we learn. Our preliminary assessment of effectiveness, and you'll see it in January, we'll have the final report. You can see how well this works for us, this idea that we have. And of course, the idea had hit the Boston Globe a couple of months ago, and we said we should put a storm barrier between the federal courthouse, which will be really easy negotiating with federal judges, and the Coast Guard building, which will be similarly easy. So that was our first idea, and it was a good idea. And the reason the idea said that is because the city of Boston was going to build Northern Avenue Bridge, and they had a beautiful design. It was the public process, it was beautiful. It was an observation deck that every time the tide came up high, you better be on the second deck. So we have a new concept, and this is where the disclaimer comes in. We, meaning, I think it's a real good idea. That we should be the base of the Northern Avenue Bridge. The Northern Avenue Bridge should be like the bridge over at the Charles River Dam. It should be a dual function. Every single thing we should do should be a dual function. Why wouldn't the foundation of a new bridge be a place where we could have pumps stationed inside for the storms bigger than the storm? We could come in and out during the day. We could build observation platforms. We could do all of that. And we could put a bridge on it. And it wouldn't be ugly. Try that one out. Because some people have said, a barrier is ugly. We've seen it. We've seen it in New Bedford. We've seen them over in the Thames. They're big. They're ugly. This wouldn't be ugly. In the little corner, in your right-hand, lower right-hand corner, we would have a gate. It would be sitting underwater. And that gate would remain that way until we knew we had a big storm coming, low tide, the water drains out of the channel. Does that anyway. We're not touching anything environmentally. It's every day it's the same thing. Water drains out, we lift up the gate. We now have a gigantic bowl. That bowl can handle 10% of the city for a 10-year storm event. That's a big bowl. And by the way, every 6 hours, that tide's coming up and down. So we may not ever have to pump, because it depends when the tide cycle comes. You might be able to let the water out from the gate. This is a picture of what it would look like with a gate out. And I'm sure this is a concept now. It wouldn't look like this in the end. It would be much prettier bridge, and the barrier would be different, but it would work. And inside that barrier, we could build pumps such that if the storms got worse in the future, we could pump when the water got so high. So this will work. It is a concept we've been working on, and we're trying to get the facts and figures so we can release it to the public and have the public debate. And of course, suggest to the city they do this. So we work closely with the city. They haven't heard this yet. If they're on tonight in Zoom, they have. But we'll see. And it has been recorded. So another spot that we looked at, rather than build a pump station everywhere, we see some inundation pathways here. This is down with the Dorchester Yacht Club. It's along the expressway, the brown building. There's a little bay there. Tinian Beach is there. The beaches that we've got clean. Only stormwater comes in this particular area. Well, they're going to build Morrissey Boulevard. They're going to raise it. And they're going to make that our barrier. We're going to have a roadway being our barrier. Excellent. Well, we took a look at this and said, well, what can we do? We've got all kinds of discharges coming in here. This shows you an area of the city of Boston that's draining towards the Dorchester Bay Basin. That's in the 2/3 of the way up. The blue mark, that's that area I just showed you. All the hatched areas are high enough they can drain by gravity. So as a minimum, we gotta repipe that and pipe that out, because they can always work by gravity, and gravity is our friend. The other areas may need to be pumped. So we looked at, well, how can we get the water out from the top part, and we'll do that. And the lower ones, could we put the water, could we pipe those to the Dorchester Bay? Now, every single environmental rule and law tells me we can't. Okay, so don't need those kind of questions, because I know that. Here I am admitting, but maybe we change. Maybe we decide we survive, or we go broke, or we flood. I'm not sure what the answer is there. It's gonna be choice A, B, or C. That's why there's always 3 doors you get to pick from. So here's something, but if we build this system, we can still bring it to a pump station. We can still pipe those lower areas to one pump station that we can build inside the environment and discharge to the bay. So it works, but we haven't developed it further. Again, this is DCR land, so now we have some new friends. DCR, let's use your land and put our pump station on. And by the way, these pump stations are really cheap. So this is what it looks like, the artist drawing. We already have an 84-inch stormwater that goes there today. We already have a 30-inch that comes down Placebed Road, comes in there. All the highway dumps into this little embayment. And there's a beach. We'll admit there's a beach. You don't necessarily go to the beach during the one high tidal cycle, it's raining like hell. You don't do it. You should be doing it. You might do it. But that's an opportunity that we were to build and be able to close off that. We would protect the rest of that part of the city. It's a big basin. We can hold all kinds of water there. And we bring the gate down, and gravity discharges it. We don't have to use any type of mechanical equipment. It would just discharge. We show in here a potential pump station. We don't think we even need it. We think if we reroute all the higher areas, it works. This has not been vetted by anyone. You guys are the first. I know you're feeling proud.
Yeah.
But we'll see where this goes, and it may not be possible. The neighborhoods have a say, the DCI has a say, beach people have, we know that. But they already get stormwater today. And this is a question. How do we as a public want to pay to protect ourselves? So that's why we throw these ideas out, and then I'll drive home real fast. Right? This is the whole idea that we need to always be considering. What are we going to do? 44% of the areas that we believe are vulnerable can be handled by these 2 projects. No pump stations. We believe we can get away without them. Gates, we think it'll work. We don't know what it's going to be like in 2070, but this could be the precursor. This would be the foundation that I spoke about. Build the big foundation with room for a pump if you need it. But you don't build a pump right away, because you may not need it. You build the piping, because you're doing the work. They build Morrissey, we want to throw a big pipe down there. It'll either go to a pump station, or it'll go to an abatement, whichever one. We're still working these numbers. All numbers I give you tonight are preliminary. And even after we build it, they may be preliminary. Just throwing that out there. The other non-coastal areas we're working on, this blue area, is the Stony Brook watershed. 1/3 of the city drains from one area, Stony Brook. The Stony Brook, the old Stony Brook, runs right outside here in the circle, which we occasionally remind Northeastern by making sure it surcharges so they can see we're there working hard, making sure their backwater valves work. And the other one comes out the gatehouses, 2 gatehouses down the Fenway, if you've ever seen them. And that's where we operate. That's a tremendous amount of water. The pipe is huge. Underneath Huntington Avenue is 13 foot by 26 foot. That's one big pipe. And you can't put it anywhere else. You can't get anything else in Parker Street, because that's us. All of us in the pipe. So that whole area, we looked at upland. We need upland storage. We've identified a bunch of places we can hold water, because it's in the natural brooks. Of course, we don't own the land. Here we go again. And there's all kinds of other problems. And they are environmental problems. Environment, things that we wanted to stop and clean today, we may need to overlook during a bad storm. And I'm just throwing that out there for consideration. And if it's a good idea, it is mine. And if it isn't, then I have some staff down there, they can take credit, because I'll be gone by then. So these are the regulatory considerations I want to throw out there. You gotta change the wetlands and water bodies and stuff. Vernal pools, we worry about them. The trees and that, how often might we flood these things? We don't think often. We don't think these storms are coming that often. Can we temporarily flood something and then it comes back? Isn't that what nature does? It does it by itself. We just need to mimic it better and make sure we protect it. And it costs money, and I got that. So these are all, I'm not gonna read them. One of the key ones is that thing on Northern Avenue. We need an act of Congress, a navigable waterway, so the days we're shutting it only for a couple hours, we need a physical act of Congress saying you can do that. But we'll get that, because they already did it for the Moakley Bridge. When we get like, what did I say, 30 years? If we start now, we might get it done in 30 years. And then, of course, I think the more critical one, we don't own any land. So here we are trying to protect ourselves, trying to make it all work, and we don't own land. And we don't want to own land. We want to use the natural resources that we all own as a public. This just shows you where we are in our projects, okay? The inundation model is the top grade one, and we got to the point, and that's our public now. We constantly work with the city, and we're doing, in the middle of that program there, you see the dark orange, that's our project we're going, and where we want to wind up at a resiliency hub. And what is that beside a fancy name by a planner? Well, that wants to be the one-stop shopping. We want you to be able to go in and say, well, if the city builds this coastal barrier, what happens? How much flooding could happen in a tropical storm with 8 feet of sea level rise, whatever. We are trying to get to that by the end of the year. So you can do the water scenarios. We can all do the water scenarios to see how many people may be impacted, what facilities may be impacted, what is the most important thing for the city to do. And that is extremely important, because everything I've shown you says that's if we do nothing. Well, that doesn't get you so excited. You want to see how can we prevent it? What should we do? What should be important for us? Not that this is without controversy, but the question is, should Boston Water Sewer be running around as we're trying to take care of everything every day? Or should this be the, and you love the name, Massachusetts Coastal Defense Agency? I mean, it sounds important.
Yeah.
And we can turn the Charles River Dam over to them too, right off the bat. And all the inputs from all of us, keeping the city alive. Do we need a new agency? A new governance? Do we need state formed? Because they can take easements. It's amazing what the state can do here. They can do whatever they want, and they can assess costs. They operate pump stations, they can do that. And constructing impoundments, oh, that's right up the state's alley. So I would advocate that we need to soon figure this out and get this to them sooner than later. And figure out how we're going to get the costs, because it's all of our problems. It's not just the people on the coast. You take out, and this is another self-serving comment, if we lose the seaport, nobody goes to the seaport. Nobody runs the air conditioning and cooling water. Nobody flushes. Boston Water Sewer loses customers. We don't have money. This is not good. We need customers. We need them flushing every day. We want them out there being hot and sweaty and turning those air conditioners on and making cooling water. That hurts us as well as everyone else. The restaurants aren't working, nothing's working. So this is a good hub center for the state. That's how they get this state tax. This is not a simple problem. It's all of our problems. And we've been able to tackle all of our problems. We did the big dig, didn't we? Now, I'm not giving the estimates of costs here because I know what happened there. But it got us through it, and it works like a charm. And I just throw that out. We got to get through this and make it work like a charm. So just so what we're doing, we're putting out a contract. We want to update all of our stormwater, make sure we know what our pipes are doing. That's extremely important. So we're going to update all that. We just put out a contract. We're putting sensors in our system. Just because our computer model says this is how it works, that doesn't mean anything. We want to know how those pipes are reacting every time the tide comes in high. There may be a leak that we don't know about, a tide gate that's private connected to our system. Only a sensor will tell us as we watch the tides and watch rain events. So that's going in this year. We're going to be looking at the inundation model. We're going to update everything on it. We're going to look at the future rainfall events. Are we using the right ones? Maybe we're not. Or maybe we should have an option. Maybe it does change, maybe it doesn't. So the what if scenarios are very important. So we're gonna be putting on the contract for that. We're gonna look at LiDAR information. People may have changed the water, elevation along the waterfront. Or maybe we got it wrong before. So we wanna look at that whole issue there. And then, of course, we need the experts. The Woods Hole Group does an incredible job. I have no clue what they do, but they give us an answer, and that's good. And they have this model, and it says, all this stuff happens, and it takes me 3 weeks to compute it, and it's just high. That's good, because now we know we have to protect ourselves against this. And we want to update that, constantly update it. Every 5 years, we can't slack off this. Right now, we're saying we'll take on this burden as the water sewer, because we're trying to get the thing moving. And then when all of you vote to have the Mass Coastal Defense Agency put together, then we'll give it to them, everything. So we want to the resiliency hub too is very important, because the city's learning as they're building their barriers, so we need to input that. And we work very closely with the city. Once a week, we talk to them. I don't know if we'll come up with any answers, but we do talk to them once a week. It's really fun. Then we look at the inlet controls, or something that's really bugging us, because we have to find places to park water on someone else's land, up in West Roxbury and Hyde Park, et cetera. And we violate every Wetlands Protection Act ever, if we were to do what we wanted to do. But we have to find ways around that. There's something we can do. There's a lot of smart people out there. Something we can do to take care of that problem. We're going to get on that in 2024. So, the storm is coming. And we don't want to see this. Although that would be something to see. This important message, I said there wouldn't be any takeaways. Well, there's a couple. We're the first ones to really feel this climate change. This is really happening. At first, there were deniers and all that, but there's no denying this now. It's happening. And we have a responsibility to the kids. Just do something now, because if we don't do something now, there's serious problems and consequences to face us. And that's not just on coastal, that's on the heat island too. That's a very important part. And this, I think, is kind of interesting. Everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves. We want you to do something different and them to do something different. But you never want you to do something different. So you got to change your mind. We got to figure it out. It's all of us together, whether we like it or not, because we're the only ones that can control it. And if we don't control it, you can see what the consequences might be. And by the way, if you turn on the news every night, you can see the consequences across the nation. There's all kinds of problems out there. So with that, I leave it open for a discussion. That's my email address. Pretty easy. You can't remember John Sullivan, Boston, then you don't deserve to call me up. But I think you can remember it. And I take the emails, answer every email, any questions. And believe me, I love to be challenged, because we're searching for answers. Remember, we love gravity. Good. With that, I open up questions.